Hey guys, it's Annie with Southtown Realty. It is the third Thursday of the month, which means I'm going to interview somebody related to home buying, selling, or occupying. On this particular day, I am inviting my personal attorney, Deacon Haymond.
How is everybody today?
Hola, we are good. Thank you so much for joining me.
You bet.
Um, so this is Deacon Haymond. This is my personal attorney who helped me just creatively arrange all of my kind of will and trust revolving around my properties. And I will not claim to be able to explain adequately what it is you do, which is why you're here. And I can't even remember who referred you to me, how we met, but we've been working together for several years now. And I've
We have, and thank you for the opportunity to be of service to you, Annie.
Yes, I'm happy to have you in my back pocket for all the random things I need help with. So why don't you give us a little bit of background? I don't know anything about you personally, like where you grew up, if you have a family, how you got into law, if it's a family practice or what. So
Yeah,
just
a little bit about me and perhaps our boutique law firm. I am a Utah native. I grew up down in Utah County. Went up to the University of Utah for my education. Met a bunch of lifelong friends through college and law school there at the same institution, and then went into the practice of law immediately thereafter. I have a wife and two fantastic kids. We live 10 minutes from the office that we set up, and right, so our commute is not a big deal for us,
yeah,
and love to have an office in the Wasatch back and the Wasatch front, helping clients with their legal needs.
love that.
Yeah.
And what is your actual title? Like, what is the title of your lawyerism?
You might have known attorneys like to put a lot of different names and hats on, right?
Yeah.
So I've even run across some who demand to be called Esquire. Those are a rare breed. I just want to broadcast, and there are very few of those. If anybody's walking around, please call me Esquire. Call me. I want to have a chat with you about your needs or ego, as the case may be. So I'm an attorney at law, which means I have a legal degree. It is a doctorate in legal studies. So if you're talking to a licensed attorney who passed law school, technically that's a doctor of law in planning. But I don't assign such titles. Please just call me Deacon. I don't need a title behind it. In my own law firm, I use the term managing director, which is just another fun way to say, let's have a conversation about who's doing what. But I'm the president, sole owner, operator, but we have some other attorneys and staff here, and they like to call me Deacon. So that's how it works at my firm, Annie.
Okay. And you primarily focus in the area of wills and trusts and some real estate stuff because you have other attorneys that work with you that are kind of in that realm as well, right? So maybe explain what your
Sure.
firm does in general.
So as a specialty, there's a lot of things we don't do. We don't get into a lot of contested legal matters. We're not criminal defense attorneys, though I was going to tell you a story about Perry Mason and how that came to be for me.
You should.
We are not. We are not. We are not divorce attorneys. We have so many trusted friends and colleagues
Okay.
that when it comes to conflict, we find the right people to help them through anything that's going to be contested or drawn out or in the court systems for a long period of time. The majority of clients who are asking us are really starting with some simple legal questions, moving on to more advanced. Sometimes the most simple legal question is, what's going to happen if I'm ever incapacitated?
Hmm.
In terms of when I pass away, what are the most tax efficient or asset protected or most cost efficient methods of passing on my wealth, whether that's our real property or something else, to our loved ones, to our charities? It starts with some of those foundational questions, and the questions get bigger depending on the needs and the goals and what we have to plan for.
Okay. And so does that include I've actually always wanted to ask you this if you do probate stuff.
Our firm specializes in trust administration and probate,
Okay.
which is the next phase of planning when somebody does pass away.
Mhm.
The real question there is, what's going to be efficient about that process, or what's going to be challenged through that process? So depending on the real good work that people do in their planning before they pass away is often going to dictate what that process is going to look like afterwards, right? So either
And
way,
okay.
we're there to counsel their trusted people through whether it's a mess and we have lots of moving pieces and things to gather and clean up and tax reporting is a mess.
Hmm.
We can help with that, to the most streamlined of things. I recall vividly a meeting when I was with a large downtown law firm of clients that came in, expecting to have that meeting with the attorney that we all see on TV. We're going to meet with Deacon because mom passed away. And we're going to sit around a table, and Deacon's going to read the will, and Deacon's going to explain to us who's going to get what, like we've seen in so many movies before. And when they came in, they were stunned because mom had done such great work in planning. Mom's key asset was the home, and they said, what do we do with mom's home? And for an affidavit I slid across the table, two daughters signed and became the owners of the home. Stunned, they still looked at me and said, is there anything else we need to do? And the answer is no. It's all
Mm.
done in minutes, because that's what mom built and intended and designed, and it all went to plan.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So I think that people have this idea that if they don't own that much, I sell a lot of first-time home buyers their first home, and a lot of times, maybe they're a married couple, maybe they're a single person, maybe they're a single person who's buying the house, but their girlfriend or boyfriend is going to move in with them.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, do you recommend people come and see an attorney like you in those instances? Like, I think that sometimes people go, I don't have enough wealth to necessitate an attorney, or I'm young enough where I
Sure.
don't necessitate an attorney. What are some things
Yeah.
people should be thinking about?
Let's reconsider the fact that there is that psychology out there of, gosh, when or if do I need an
Hmm.
attorney? But do consider, in this day and age, think of how our median home pricing in Utah looks these days. As you constitute making such a significant wealth acquisition, right? And going into the debt a lot of people are going to go into as a
Hmm.
first-time home buyer, you and I, again, being professionals, we'd say, have you really considered the cost of failing to do any planning, or failing to at least have a conversation about
Hmm.
what those options are, so that you know what risks you run with your decisions? That means the first thing that people start to consider is really the practical one. How am I going to afford and pay for this home? And so to become a first-time home buyer, they've started to ask and answer those questions, right? So they think they have a plan. The next two easy questions are just this. What happens if you lose your job and you can't pay for that? What's going to happen next,
Hmm.
right? What if the income source is gone? What's the long-term plan? What if not losing a job? What if you're incapacitated? Do you have long-term, do you have disability insurance that's going to be there? Do you have a safety net? We're not even getting to the legal questions. We're just getting to the practical questions, right? What if you as a couple, whether married or partners or significant others or just co-tenants, what if there's a breakup? What's the outcome going to be for that significant asset that you just acquired? So start with the basic questions instead of starting with, oh my gosh, do I need this or this or that? Uh, it's easier to focus on what's really important. If we start to have those questions, then options and planning are going to present themselves.
I guarantee you just created a massive amount of anxiety for anybody watching this going, I never asked those questions. The incapacitated piece, namely, I think that even people that are, you know, pessimistic people, they don't even think that far. Like, I certainly don't think
Yeah,
about that. Like, I think, oh, if I died, would it be easy for my family to deal with, everything that I've acquired? Or like, would we know who to give what to? But yeah,
yeah,
truly, if I was incapacitated, I don't I don't even know if I have a plan like that within
yeah.
within what we maybe we need to meet again
So
and talk
it,
about that.
you know, it's really and it's really hard. No one wants to be burdened with having to think through another legal process. They're often exhausted.
Hmm.
I would say for a first-time homeowner, I remember the process of acquiring our first home. We've coached a lot of clients through that. We've been counselors to clients for over 20 years. And the last thing they want to hear is, hey, let's go talk to an attorney about
Yeah,
next steps.
yeah,
Or you should really visit with your CPA or financial planner. Also, which are really good things to be thinking about as they're considering some of those practical questions. Yet, we know maybe the advice is don't do it tomorrow, but within the next 4, 5 months, you really recover from the process that you just went through, take that deep breath and go have those conversations. The,
yeah.
the same the same is very incredibly true of clients who go through a divorce. They've just been tired of dealing with attorneys. They're tired of dealing with the court process. They're just happy to have a legal resolution, and then they can start their financial and emotional healing. If you said to them, now you need to go update your planning, they'd say, please, I just want to put that off. I don't need to think about that right
Yeah.
now. But if they thought that their ex would be making decisions about their property, if they became incapacitated because they'd failed to go update that plan, that would turn on a switch and they'd say, oh, that's absolutely right. I've got to take some actions now so that my future is governed by the people I want, how I want, when I want to deal with those things.
Yeah. I think I just recently reached out to you to ask for an attorney that deals with kind of the paperwork in regards, because a lot of what's going on right now is people are thinking they're thinking that home ownership is not affordable to them anymore, which isn't usually the case. I think that the media just kind of gets in people's heads. But if they think it is affordable, maybe they think, oh, I want to buy it with a brother or with a friend as opposed to a spouse or, a, girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. And so I reached out to you recently to say, hey, I need somebody on my team who can write up that paperwork. So say one friend or sibling has $100,000 in the bank account, but the other one has a really good credit score and they buy a
Right.
house together and a year later they're fighting and they don't want to own it together, or one of them goes off and gets married or
Yeah.
whatever, then how do you deal with that particular circumstance?
Yeah. The best way to explain this to people is really the use and payment and maintenance agreement. It takes all shapes and sizes. So different law firms would call this different things, and clients draft different things when it comes to this. But isn't the concept that we want to create the rules of engagement that we're
Mhm.
all going to live by? The one who has more assets is going to want certain rules and conditions. The one who's going to be doing the financing and payment needs rules and conditions. And then they have something that makes it easier for them. Can disagreements happen? Of course, because life can change and all those same situations we talked about can happen to either one of those parties. But you want to have that agreement so that where they start the conversation is around the terms and conditions they agreed to and be workable people to work those out. If there's an absence of that, then you kind of said it. It's a he said, or he said, she said situation, and they're both going to fight about it. And they
Yeah,
don't have any documentation that says, here's how that's going to
yeah,
happen. So it's really that contract between them of how we're going to deal with this now. And it doesn't have to be a contract that's unchangeable. It can be a contract that says we can both agree to change this as circumstances change. So what if the one that brought all the capital is now having those situations happen in their life? Can they come back to the table, both of them, and adjust that? And the hope is they would want to.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think that that's great advice, and I particularly like all the questions that you asked earlier. I almost feel like I want to make like a little pamphlet that I send to people 4 months after they bought their house. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
now that you've settled in, here's some questions to ask. And then I don't know, Deacon, if you're taking new clients right now or not, but being like, this guy can help you with those things if you need.
Well, two
I
things.
didn't,
You seized on the timing thing, which is perfect, Annie, and we can design those kinds of resources that when you have these next step questions, when these things are going to happen for you in life, here are the people you need to start asking those
yeah,
questions of. Yeah.
yeah, no, I love that. I didn't prep you with this question, so hopefully it's not inappropriate. And I'm just looking for like a general gauge because I think like when I went to go hire an attorney to set up my LLCs and stuff, I had no idea what I was in for cost wise,
Yeah.
and I think that was one of the things that prevented me from doing it for a long time. I was like, this could be like $10,000 or it could be like $200. I literally have no idea. So say you've got a couple that they're unmarried, they just bought a house together, they're starting, they watch this interview, they're thinking about the incapacitated and the death and the breakup
Yeah.
questions. What are they like sort of just generally in for to kind of get something set in place that has those rules for it cost wise? And again, sorry to
Yeah.
kind of just put that on you.
No, it's okay. It's. Do you think we don't get that question on a regular
That's
basis?
fair.
That if I'm ill prepared to answer that question, then I have not been practicing as many years as I just told you
Fair
that we
enough.
had. I'm going to give you sort of an attorney's answer, but I want to give it in a way that's hopefully going to be helpful to the people listening and participating with the live stream. You are as difficult a client as you can be. So let me break that down. If you're a client like Annie, who has information at her fingertips, who can gather asset information quickly, who can communicate effectively, who will keep a meeting, who will take advice, who will ask good questions, we're able to look at and identify the options in planning that work for you without suggesting to you that you need to go and implement parts of a plan which have no financial benefit to
Mm.
you. One irritating thing that I've noticed about when I review someone's plans prepared by other attorneys, whether they're in this state or whether they're asset protection based out of Nevada, or whether people are implementing other state entities, is if they don't communicate with their advisors well, the advisors are sort of giving advice in a box. Maybe they're sold off the shelf pieces. Maybe they're overbilled because they think that name on the law firm gives them something of value that is otherwise not of value, if that makes sense. So I think the critical thing is to be prepared, ask fantastic questions, and here's the big one. If your attorney isn't explaining to you the value add in a transaction, then why are you paying the attorney for advice at all? If you are in a situation where you need legal help, you should be looking for the legal and financial consequences of not getting the help, right? I'm hurting, I need this thing solved, and the attorney should explain the cost, the time, the money, the court process involved to solve the problem. I don't know that we as attorneys, and I'll accuse us of being both bad at this as a class and also us being as bad as many clients are, Annie, of considering what the world would look like without us. We can't imagine us not in it. So
Mhm.
we as a class are not thinking about our own incapacity or death the way we would hope we should be and counseling our clients through. With all that in mind, if they're not communicating that value, then you can't expect to receive value from the attorney. Try to simplify your question. A client says, Deacon, I just want to avoid probate. Well, I can show you 3 ways to do it, but you thought there might only be one answer. What if there's 3? The question should be, which of these is more than I need to pay for because it's really not aligned with my goals? Which one is too little because it's not accomplishing some of the other meaningful goals I have in planning? And what's the right choice in the middle?
Mhm. Okay. So, in terms of cost, then, are you saying that it's scaled based on how irritating the client is?
Oh,
Or how organized they are?
I think that's a hidden cost that a lot of attorneys bury in there.
Yeah.
I once had a very difficult client. That was 15 years
Mm.
ago. And as challenging as I knew that client would be, I'm not going to reveal his or her gender. I'm doing my best to get that name out of my mind right now as I talk with you about it. We decided to go on an hourly basis because I knew, and she said, I'm going to have lots of questions for you on an hourly basis.
Yeah.
So she realized she was going to pay a lot of money because she had a lot of
Yeah.
questions. And she got all the answers that she needed. But if she had asked me to do the same work for her on a fixed fee basis, which is
Mhm.
something we typically want to engage with clients, is say, show us the scope of what you want done, let's make sure it's a good fit, and let's enter into a fixed fee agreement.
Mhm.
It would have been half of that
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah.
And at the end of the representation, she said, I wish it had been half of the cost. And I said, it would have been, but you wanted to know that you could come in and ask the questions and spend the time. So I think the biggest mistake that can protect people as they deal with attorneys is be very clear about your expectations and wants, understand and get from the attorney very quickly what their process is, what the costs are, what the budget is to do a project, and then agree to it. Then you're not going to have any miscommunication. Same as we would do if we were hiring any professional services
Yeah.
provider, right?
Yeah. I
The
was just gonna
paint,
say.
the painter of the new house.
Yeah.
Paint my whole new house. Paint it this color. Do it as soon as possible. If the painter sends a bill that scares them, it's because they didn't do a good job of communicating all those
Yeah.
details,
Yeah.
right? The same can happen in legal services, and we've seen it many times. So I think the key thing there is to be communicative, not be a difficult client. I'm not accusing anybody, thanks Annie, of being a difficult client. But what kind of communication relationship do you want with an attorney? How often do you want them following up with you, if at all? Is this a one and done transaction? Or are you looking for a service relationship long term? What are you trying to create with someone?
Right. Yeah, and as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, the same thing goes for lenders and real estate agents and basically anybody is like, come prepared, come knowing what you want, or come with the right
Yeah.
questions. and you're going to
Yeah,
save. I'm such a proponent of just time saving in general, and I say that from my clients from the very first day that I meet with them. Is like, let's preserve time as much as we can by let me get to know you as well as I can, so that I can help you find the thing that you want as quickly as possible. Because
right.
I'm generally not here to window shop. I'm here to help you do the thing you came to me that you said you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that completely makes sense. So from the scale of 200 to 10,000, though, like, just so
There's a
people
lot of legal
kind of
services you
have.
can get from the $200 to $10,000 window. That's a fantastic
All right.
window, Annie. That's great.
I will just give people your number, and they can come and meet with you prepared with
Yeah.
the right questions, and then they can proceed to figure out how much it's going to be. But I
When
will
you,
say that I was
yeah,
pleasantly surprised.
when you,
I wasn't wildly sticker shocked when I met with you, and I feel like I
yeah,
had a lot of stuff
yeah, yeah.
to accomplish with you. So
Well, thank you. A, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. But more B, whether my fees for Annie were $200 or $10,000, and Annie will tell you whatever in that
I
range
don't
the fees
remember.
were, if you
I
want
just
to ask
remember.
Annie what the fees were.
I just
But
remember
but
not being shocked. I don't remember what it was.
but whatever that fee range was, I think the important thing is again, it's the communication of value. What do you want? What do you need? What do you not want? I think look, it's scary to be in an attorney's office. Before I was an attorney, when I was just even a law student, interviewing with attorneys to prospectively become one, there's just a big power imbalance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're meeting with a who may be a professional. You want to look them up. You want to validate that they are a professional. You want to validate they don't have complaints against them. Not just Google reviews, but you can check the bar and see, is this somebody that's being sued for fraud? Is this someone who has a bad reputation, even within their own circles? The same way we should research all the professionals we are about to go to, doctors, dentists. You pick it. You want to know that you're going to somebody that you hope is going to give you good service. And then you want to communicate with them and see if they're a good fit. I am not a good fit to represent everybody that walks in my door.
Mm-hmm.
We're lucky enough to have enough great professional relationships with fantastic professional advisors that we are not concerned about having to take every client that walks in, because we don't want them to be mad at us or us mad at them.
Yep.
So it's figuring out if it's going to be a good fit.
Oh, I didn't know if there was a
I don't know.
second sentence there.
I want to go on, but maybe I just wanted to complain about something else, and then I'll take Thumper's advice, which is never say anything. What did Thumper say to Bambi? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Fair
I'm going to
enough.
opt for that.
All right, fair enough. Well, I was going to give you a second, because usually I keep these around 20 minutes long. So I was going to give you a second if
Yeah,
you had any like funny stories or anything you
yeah.
wanted to share, or any
We can
questions I should be asking that I'm not asking right now.
do funny stories. We can also answer any of the things that are going on in chat. I see something popped up in the chat saying, how much did this cost?
I think somebody's being a little snarky. How much did this cost to watch?
Yeah, I don't
But
know. You post your answer in chat. If you've received an electronically emailed invoice from Haymond Law, please post that now in the chat.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
let's move on to maybe to end a funny story or something you might
Oh,
want to share.
a funny story to share.
And
All right,
no
I'll do my best.
pressure.
Yeah, it hasn't been much of a day for comedy here at the firm. It's been a lot of deadlines and things, so I
Mm,
can't say that I'm in the best mental state to be telling
mm,
the best of stories, but I will do my best. Maybe I can go back to a little bit of law school. Let's get that a little bit practical, which is in law school, I really did think I was going to be the next Perry Mason, mostly because for those of you who do not know who Perry Mason is, please feel free to look that up and get your details on who that character was in historical TV, amazing television watching. But Perry Mason was a defense attorney, and in every episode of Perry Mason, someone would die early on, and we would not know who the killer was. And Perry Mason had the most fantastic office. He had this fantastic assistant, Stella. He had Paul, sort of his private detective friend, and Paul would gather all the information, and Stella would put it all together. And by the end of every episode, Perry Mason would have figured out who in the courtroom, and they were often in the courtroom, not being the defendant, was guilty of the crime, and get his client, who was the accused, off of the murder charges involved against the client. And I thought that was exactly who I wanted to be when I went to law school. I am going to be Perry Mason. I'm going to have that lifestyle. And then reality struck up and hit me in law school as I started to volunteer as I started to serve as a clerked for Judge O'Done down in the 3rd District Court, got to see some of the day-to-day things. It very quickly occurred to me that TV is not real life. And the demands and the pressures of that world were too much for my lifestyle and my want for my cute little family. I am very respectful of my colleagues who choose to pursue a career and help criminal defense, those in need of criminal defense, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So then I was abandoned as a law student in law school. I think like many are, where especially in job markets where jobs are uncertain, where it's hard to find a job. When I graduated, I think 15 or 20% of my class had jobs secured, which meant that a lot of those graduates coming out did not have a place to go work, or at least
Yeah,
the
it's
place they were
not a
going to
lot.
work was not a law firm. So they were going into alternative careers. They were going into becoming financial advisors, business advisors, but not necessarily the practice of law, which can happen in market tight environments. I was fortunate enough to fall into planning for 2 reasons. I got a small little clerkship doing a little bit of hourly research for a law firm, and I was able to convince them that they needed a clerk, and that eventually convinced them they ought to need an associate attorney to handle the kinds of legal work that they didn't want to do in their regular practice, just so they could have some more revenue from the firm. So I had to build my own place in a law firm, but I was honored to work with some fantastic attorneys who took a chance on me to hire me and take me on in planning to provide trust administration and probate services. So as you mentioned, Annie, I learned that on the reverse side. I started helping people as an attorney with the matters they didn't want to handle. They wanted to help with pre-planning. They asked me to handle all the post-planning. So that's where I started and gathered all my experience in seeing the pitfalls, successes, and mistakes made in post-death administration.
Smart.
So started there, and then it really empowered me, I believe, because we are better planners, because we know what the end game is going to look like, both from a legal and financial perspective, and then we can help our clients make some better decisions on that. Even so far as to tell a fun story of a client today realizing they had a legacy trust in place for the longest time. We discovered it was broken. We discovered that's going to be an $800,000 tax when they die as a couple, that hopefully by the end of this year, if they take some reasonable steps to fix, their heirs are not going to pay $800,000.
Wow.
So while that might not be in the category of fun for their girls, they would say that's in the category of awesome.
Of winning.
Just
Yeah.
because
Wow.
they started by taking the steps of, we need to ask some better questions, and if it doesn't feel right, and if it's out of date, and it's just not what you're looking for, then maybe something else needs to be adjusted to make your plan a little bit better.
Yeah. Wow. No, I love that. I love that idea of you kind of starting in the industry on the back end. So now you have even a better idea of how to plan before you get there. So that's a great story. Not, maybe it won't make a TV show like Perry Mason, but it's a.
No, in 20 more years, when we see all the pitfalls of beneficiaries being mad at each other, the worst case scenarios, those are kind of fun and made for TV. What's not really made for TV shows are all the wins, meaning the successes, because those are just the fun, quiet things you're supposed to enjoy with your loved ones, with your pets, with your charities, with all the amazing things clients can design in planning. And so not made for TV, just made for secret success you get to enjoy personally.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you, Deacon. This is wonderful, and I'm going to highly recommend that everybody watch this interview as they're embarking on their homeowning journey, or if they're already there. So lots of great information, and I appreciate you
Thank you,
joining me. I
Annie.
know you're a busy guy.
It is a treat to talk with you now, as it is always. I will look forward to speaking with you shortly. Bye for now,
Sounds good.
Annie.
Thanks, Deacon. Bye.